Today we're going to be focusing on our hips culminating in pigeon pose. As I always like to say, pigeon pose is not for everybody and it's not for everybody all the time. So we will have the option of reclined pigeon or figure four, or we can simply do a different pose that we know will serve us better. As always, make sure this time is your own. So when we are ready, we can find any easy seat of our choosing and we're allowed to settle in however we want to settle in. So as we do so, as we adjust and readjust, we might just give ourselves a moment to just take stock. Again, especially when we're feeling overwhelmed and anxious, especially if we're feeling unmotivated, it's hard to take stock. But this is when it is most important to take stock. So again, just give yourself that moment. Just notice how things feel right now. And then maybe we just take a moment to breathe in and breathe out. So maybe all we do right now is continue that breath. We'll take that full inhale and we'll take that full exhale. Maybe that's all we need right now. Maybe we find that that helps buffer that checking in moment. Maybe we find that we actually bring our attention to the breath, even if it's just for a moment, and then we're right back to wherever the mind is going right now. Maybe we can expand that breath. And again, make that time your own. Today might be a day that we're doing our breath through the nose entirely. We can do our breath through the nose on the inhale and exhale through the mouth. We can do the inverse of that. And we can also just breathe through the mouth. I want you to notice what version is going to serve you best today. It's not necessarily the easiest one. It's not the one we might initially go to. But I want you to take a moment and really notice what is going to work for me best today. What will help me the most? And we can remind ourselves that this is our time. We don't have to do anything I suggest. As always, the things I suggest are always that pure suggestion. Now, if it works for us, today might be a day that we try horse breath. So horse breath is kind of like what the name implies. We can think about how sometimes horses breathe loudly through their mouth and their lips essentially bounce together. Now we can do that silently, or we can make it a little more audible. And again, we can choose one or the other or none of them. So with the one that's a little more silent, what we might do is we might take a deep breath in, and then on the exhale through parted lips, we just breathe through the mouth and let our lips relax. So that might mean taking a deep breath in, and then that breath out through parted lips. As we repeat that, we can even think of this as the same type of breath we might do right before we're about to do something challenging, where we take that breath in and then we just blow it out through very relaxed lips. We can do that. That's a great version of horse breath, especially if we feel like the noise isn't going to be for us, or maybe there are just people around and we don't want to disturb them. Now, if we want to try horse breath that's a little more audible, now we'll let our lips be a little closer together and we'll let our lips bounce against each other as we breathe. So we take that breath in and then we exhale through the mouth. We let it out. So it's okay if we do this a few times and we find we're still doing that silent version with the lips just blowing out. That's okay. And again, it's okay if we feel silly with this. Yoga is one of those amazing things that puts us into new situations, and it's through those new situations that we can grow. Sometimes that new situation is a pose that is not what our body is used to. Sometimes that situation is being still. And sometimes that situation is funny breathing. That's okay. So again, we might play with that breath in and that horse breath out. We can just do this a few times with that breath in and out. And it's okay if we feel silly. Notice if we do, and just see if you can be present with that. So again, deep breath in, and our horse breath out. Now, if we would like, we're going to just spend a few more moments here. And we are welcome to continue horse breath, whether we like the silent version or the more audible one. Whatever we need right now. Again, make this time your own. Give yourself a few more breaths here. Now, if we are ready, we are welcome to bring our hands together at the heart. That might be palms together, it might be palms straight over the heart. We make that time our own. And we'll pause to set our positive intention. And we might do two things with this. The first is we might find that word, that trait that helps us in some way: love, patience, respect, balance, discipline. And is it possible to reframe that as a gratitude affirmation? We've played with affirmations before, usually in the form of I am. But what if we switch it around a little bit and thank ourselves for whatever trait we had picked? So we can say, I am grateful for my happiness, or thank you for my strength. And again, even if it doesn't feel right to say it or say it to ourselves, just notice what happens when we repeat those words to ourselves. And then we can take in the inhale that we need. And the exhale could rest our hands against our legs. And always mindful the eyes could stay closed for as long as we need. And we'll start with our torso circles. So if we'd like, we can think anchoring our hips to the ground, and we'll let our torso shift to one side. We'll let our chest circle out and around and towards the other side. Maybe those shoulders go behind the knees or behind the hips, or we might find we're drawing more of a letter D with the torso. And let that low back decide, let the hips decide on that one. Now again, I mentioned the anchoring the hips down, and that just gives us a little extra grounding, helps us focus a little more on the movement through the hips and through the back. But if we like more of a kind of rocking around, almost like we're a weeble wobble, there's really nothing wrong with that. I think this has great benefits in and of itself, so I want you to pick whichever version works best for you. And then if we're ready, we try it in the opposite direction. Again, choose which one you want to do, anchored down, more of a weeble wobble. Again, we can be silly with yoga. Yoga doesn't have to be serious. In fact, there's even styles of yoga known as laughter yoga and smiling yoga. We don't have to subscribe to them or ascribe to them. But maybe that's a nice reminder that we can be silly. We can do horse breath and wobble around. Make it your own, you know? So if we are ready, we're going to start to wind down from this nice and slow. We're just going to slowly bring ourselves back to center, just making those orbits a little tinier each time. Now, once we get back to center, we're welcome to change the cross in our legs. So whatever leg's in front can go behind, whatever leg was on top can go below. Again, make that time your own. Make sure you're doing something that's safe for the knees. Now, when we're ready, we'll let our hands find the mat. Again, we'll do that little anchoring down through the hips, get tall through the back. Now, if we're ready, we'll start to bring ourselves forward. Now, we can walk out only as far as we need to. Again, this is our first stretch of the practice. We don't want to force anything. Those first stretches can sometimes really define how the body will react for the rest of practice. I'll get into that in a moment. We're going to give this another breath in and a breath out. And then we'll walk over towards that right side, and however we want to get there. So some people will just walk out and away. Others are going to walk back a little bit and turn it into a twist. Others might do kind of an arching action. But again, nothing too crazy. Good rule of thumb is if the stretch is so much it makes us hold our breath, we want to ease back because that means the stretch is so much we've activated our stretch reflex most likely. And our stretch reflex is that same mechanism that locks up our muscles when we slide on ice. Now if we're ready, we'll come back to center. We'll try it on the other side. Again, whatever we need here. Again, a little part 3 to that flexibility spiel. is that flexibility reaction. That can last for upwards of a couple of hours. So not only do we not want to force a stretch at any point in our practice, but we don't want to force it in the very beginning. We don't want to activate that stretch reflex and possibly have our body on high alert for a couple of hours, potentially throughout our entire practice. So again, whatever we need here, and hopefully the fact that I've been talking us through it is giving us a little bit of time. We don't realize we've been spending so much time in these stretches. We're going to come back to center, and we're going to find our way into our tabletop position. Now, if you want to roll over your shins or swing your legs around, maybe you need a little furniture around you to help get from that seated position to your hands and knees, make it your own. Now, if we're ready, we're just going to start with those torso circles from table. We can let our hips shift to one side, a little circle down and around towards the other side. Now, I really want you to make these your own. Today we won't really be playing with our tabletop cat-cows like we usually do, so that might factor in what we're doing next. So some people will keep the back pretty straight, relatively straight. Others might add in a little back rounding as the hips get closer to the heels, and then let it relax as we get our hips past the knees. Some like to even add in the cat and the cat, a little drop of the belly as those hips go past the knees. We might even find it looks a little bit like our torso is making these little circular motions, almost like a micro belly dancing variation. But again, really make this time your own, and it's okay if we feel silly. Now we might go in the opposite direction. Again, make that time your own. What do you need right now? And if being silly with the movements really isn't what we need, we don't do it. There's no shame in being silly, and likewise there's no shame in maybe being a little more serious today about the practice. That's okay. Either version is valid. Now if we can, we'll start to wind down from this. Nice and slow. We're going to end on whatever it is we want to end on. Now when we're ready, we'll come back to table, and if we need a moment, we can shake out the wrists, we can do our wrist stretch, we can make fists and straighten the fingers out. Again, what does your body need? Now we're going to play with some knee circles from table. Now if we're ready, we'll put a little more weight into our right leg, and we'll lift up our left leg. Now if we can, we're just going to circle out the knee in one direction. And we're going to circle out the knee in the opposite direction. Now, if we can, notice if you've pivoted over to the right with those hips, and we're just going to draw those hips back to center. One more circle. We'll bring that leg down if we need a moment. Maybe a little extra shake out for the hands. They might have done a little double duty there to keep everything stable. Now, if we're ready, we try it on the other side. So a little more weight into that left knee so the right knee can lift up. And we'll circle it out in one direction. Doing our best to stay stable as we go in the opposite direction. Again, keeping that left hip from swinging out to the left. Our body's going to be very tempted to push that hip out, but we're going to try to keep bringing it back in. And one more circle here. We'll bring that knee down. Again, we might need to shake things out, a little stretch out. We'll take a moment in our child's pose. So any version of child's pose that we need, I invite you to come into it. And while you are here, maybe we can come back to that intention. So maybe our intention, we can rephrase it again in that gratitude. So again, maybe we're saying, I'm grateful for my peace. I am grateful for my resilience. Thank you for my balance. Thank you for my strength. And again, it might not be what I'm saying. I'm just giving some options. Now, if we are ready, we're going to find our way into our first downward facing dog. Now, we're welcome to come back up, readjust the hands, the feet, we'll curl the toes. And again, whatever type of downward facing dog works for us here. Great time to notice what we personally need out of it. Now we might play with those same circles here. So maybe we start on our left side again. We'll lift up that left leg. We'll bend our knee, and maybe we start with our three-legged dog. So we let that knee point out to the side as we open up through the hips. And then maybe we circle out that knee. It's okay if those circles feel a little more oblong. Now maybe we can go in the opposite direction. And then we'll bring that leg down. Maybe we go on the opposite side, opposite leg can lift up. Maybe we bend the knee, maybe we open out through the hips as that knee points out the right side of the room. And maybe we circle out in one direction. And we circle out in the opposite direction. And it's okay if this side feels different than our left side. Now when we're ready, we'll bring that leg down, and I invite you to do the movement of your choosing. So for some, that's a conventional vinyasa flow, that roll towards plank, a mindful lower, a back bend that feels good, and then bringing yourself back to a resting pose. We just did a lot of work on our hands. Maybe what we need is child's pose or table, or to come down to our forearms. Again, notice what you need right now. Now we'll try our best to breathe in, and we'll try our best to breathe out. One more breath if possible. Now when we are ready, we'll find our way into a forward fold. So we're welcome to walk our feet to the hands, hands to the feet, however you want to get there. Now once you are here, I invite you to do whatever you might need. Now maybe it feels good to shake out the head. Maybe today's more of a sway the hips kind of day. Maybe we just want to really bend the knees and just let everything hang heavy. What do you need? Again, I love coming back to that question because sometimes we look so externally for our yoga practice, when our yoga practice ideally is a very internal thing that we're doing. We are constantly looking inwards. Maybe this gets another full breath in and a full breath out. Now when we are ready, we can come up to stand. So we might press through the feet. We can let our arms reach up and overhead. And eventually we'll let our hands find their way towards the heart. And we'll pause. We'll take that moment to breathe in. We'll take that moment to breathe out. And then if we are ready, we'll find our way into chair pose. So again, we're trying our best to let our toes point straight ahead. We'll shift back, maybe back and down. We're gonna try our best to let those knees point straight ahead as well. Now, if we can, we'll notice that our knees are side by side, so neither knee is in front nor behind the other. Our hips are parallel towards the front of the mat. They are not swiveled to the left or towards the right. Now we're gonna try our best to keep this alignment as we add in a twist. I know our legs are getting tired, but bear with me. We're gonna take a deep breath in. On the exhale, we're gonna come over towards the right so those hands can find the heart, and we start to twist to the right. But looking down, have those knees moved on us? Did the hips pivot on us? Can we bring them back? We might have hinged forward, but hinging forward is not a mandatory requirement. We certainly don't have to have the elbow or forearm find a leg. Make this your own. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. We'll come back to center. We'll take that breath in. And on the exhale, right on over to the other side. I know our legs are getting tired. Notice that tiredness if you can. Notice that relative discomfort. Can you breathe in? Can you breathe out? Are those hips still staying where they are? Knees still staying where they are? That's super important for our knees and our hips. One more deep breath. We'll unwind, one last chair pose, and back to forward fold. We'll readjust, and we'll come down. Now we can hang out here and just do whatever we need. Maybe we just want to continue to sway, shake the head. Maybe we like to have our hands on our elbows, elephant trunk pose. Maybe we want the hands behind the back, little shoulder stretch. And make that time your own. The only rules, we're not forcing anything. It's all about the muscles that we are helping out, not about what it looks like. We're going to try our best to breathe in and breathe out. We might even play with a little horse breath here. Again, we could do the silent version or the audible version where we just take that breath in And out through the mouth. Again, maybe a deep breath in. And out through the mouth. We can do that a couple times if we'd like. We can skip it. We can go back to the silent version. Whatever we need. So whatever we're doing, we'll try our best to breathe in. We'll try our best to breathe out. Now when we are ready, we are welcome to find the Vinyasa flow of our choosing. Now that might look like a halfway lift, strong back. On the exhale, we can relax it down. We'll plant the hands. We step back. We do the movement of our choosing, which might mean coming to plank. Maybe knees have come down. That's a little less strenuous on the shoulders. As we lower, it's okay if those elbows are a little more winged out as long as we didn't move them as we lowered. And likewise, as we came up, and we'll find our way back to a resting pose. And we really want to think, lift through the hips first, whether it's the table or pointed plank, and then come to your resting pose. That is one of the most crucial things we could do for our core. It's one of the kindest things we can do for our low back. Now, if we want, we're going to play a little bit with our core. We're going to do a little bit of an around the world. Now, again, we don't have to do this if this doesn't feel good for us. We might start with our three-legged dog on the left side, lifting up, bending the knee, opening through the hip. Now, eventually, we're going to let that knee find first our left elbow, then swing around to the right, and then maybe we can retrace our step. If that doesn't feel good, maybe we just do knee across the body towards the right and back. Again, make this time your own. So if we can, we're going to come to plank pose, left knee towards left elbow, then it swings around to the right, and then we retrace our steps back to three-legged dog. Two more times. So left elbow, right elbow, retrace our steps. One more time, we're just drawing that nice little letter C, pendulum swing, and back, pausing here if we can. And then we'll find our way into our warrior two, so we can always bring our knee to chest, foot towards that left hand. We'll come up, we can let the heel come down, we'll open out, pausing in that warrior two. Give yourself a moment here. So while we are here, just noticing, can we have our front foot face straight ahead? Can we have that knee point straight ahead as well? Noticing if the knee tends to bow into the middle, and I want you to activate those outer thigh muscles and pull it. So as if it's trying to point out the pinky side edge of our foot. And just give yourself a moment with that. Take that moment to breathe in, that moment to breathe out. Now if we can, we'll find our reverse warrior, so that front palm flips, back hand can lightly find the back leg as we reach up, or maybe it's more up and back. I want you to take a moment with this. Notice what's happening with that back arm. Did we collapse our weight to try to get into this super duper side bend? And I want you to bring yourself back a little bit, lift through the chest, lift through the ribs, and then tip up and back. As that top arm reaches upwards first, maybe it reaches up and back. Almost no weight is on that back hand. We might even prefer more of a half bind. Again, just give yourself a moment with that. Take that breath in. Take that breath out. One more breath. Then we'll find the extended side angle of our choosing, so we're welcome to come back up. Now our extended side angle might be a front forearm on the front thigh. We might prefer a hand on our shin, or hand to the ground. Maybe we like our hovering version where we're holding that invisible beach ball, or maybe we like to do a half bind as that top or that bottom forearm is lifted off of our leg. What do we want here? As always, maybe we'd like to use a block, stacked books, stacked boxes, furniture. What do you need? But whatever we're finding, can that front knee still face straight ahead? Notice if it's trying to collapse to the middle again. Again, most of us, our inner thigh muscles are way stronger than the outer thigh muscles. This is our chance to counteract that. Strengthen those outer thigh muscles. That'll help us with pigeon as well. One more breath, I promise we're almost done. And then we'll come out back to warrior two. Maybe we can find triangles. We'll let our front leg straighten, being careful not to let it lock out. We'll reach forward. Some like to let the hips shift back. You don't have to do that if that doesn't work for you. As we slowly cartwheel down. Again, make this your own. What feels good here? We're just going to try our best to breathe in and breathe out. Now, if we'd like, we can always play with a little press of the belly to the spine. Some like to reach straight for the ceiling, some like to reach up and overhead. As I like to give as a cue, we can even just open out through the chest as that arm travels back. Some styles of yoga frown upon this, but there's really nothing wrong with it as long as it feels good for the body. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Whatever we found, one more breath. We're going to bring ourselves up. We're going to find our way to goddess pose. So we might need to readjust our props. We're going to pivot our front foot in, readjust the back heel in. We might need to weeble wobble a little bit to get our legs on that nice line. And we'll let our tailbone sink down. And again, we're going to try our best to think knees are pointing in the same direction as those toes. They haven't bowed into the middle. They're actively drawing back. We'll bring our elbows out to the side. I know this is a hard pose. Take a moment here. Maybe we come back to horse breath. So again, we might take a deep breath in and out. We'll take that deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. One more breath. And maybe those tailbones can get a little bit lower, maybe not, and then we'll lift back up. We'll let our feet point straight ahead for our forward fold. Maybe we want them to point straight ahead. We can even have them point slightly inwards if we want to focus on our outer calf muscle area. And then we tilt forward. Now, some like to walk themselves out. Others like to hold the hips and kind of guide the hips forward like it's a bowl that they're pouring water into the floor in front of them. And then we'll find whatever we need here. So this is our forward fold. We might hang heavy, we might sway, we might walk our hands to one foot, walk our hands to the other foot. It's okay if that left side of our the inner leg on the left side feels a little different. We did just stretch only the left side, so just notice that asymmetry. Be gentle with yourself. Don't try to force symmetry on the right side. Notice what it is. Take that breath in and take that breath out. Can we give this 3 more breaths? Now, mindful that we can come out of this however we want to. We can return to down dog however we want to. We might like to play with that pivot into a runner's lunge, but just like pigeon, not for everyone all the time. Listen to your joints. Now, if we want to play with that pivot into a runner's lunge, we'll bend our knees and give it a nice generous bend. And we're going to get ready to walk towards the top of our mat. So we'll walk our hands to the top of the mat. And as we do so, we'll let our front foot pivot forward, back heel pops up. We might need to readjust our feet. Now, eventually we're coming back to our downward facing dog. If we want to do a little extra core work, we might press through the hands, lift up through the back, bend the knee, let that foot just hover for a bit, and then come back to down dog. And again, this is our time and our movement. We might do a conventional flow, and sometimes conventional flow might look like coming to plank, letting knees come down, little chaturanga push-up or a tricep push-up if we prefer. And we can come up and back, no back bend. Again, make that time your own, make it what you need it to be. And we're gonna make sure to give ourselves plenty of time in whatever resting position we need. And if we need longer, that's a beautiful thing about a video, we can hit pause. Give yourself that time. Only if we are ready, we'll try it on the other side. So if we're ready, we'll take now our right leg up, and maybe we do up, bend the knee, find our 3-legged dog. Now we might play with our around the world. Maybe that's not for us, and if that's the case, maybe we're doing right knee to right elbow and back. Now if we're ready, as we come to plank, right knee towards right elbow, but then it swings around to the left, and then we retrace our steps, making that letter C back to three-legged dog. 2 more times. Knee to right, then left, swing back, three-legged dog. 1 more time. We bring the knee towards the elbow, swing it around, swing it back, up and back. And maybe we're ready for our our warrior 2. So if we're ready, we'll do our knee to chest, flip towards the right hand. As we come up, heel can come down. We can readjust as we need to. We find our warrior 2. One of the things I always love about the standing pose that follows core work like that, there's relative rest in it. That's a nice reminder. Everything is relative. There is no universal innate experience. We could also just be happy that our muscles aren't working as hard right now. Now, if we're ready, we'll find reverse warrior. We'll flip that front palm. We lift up and back. We reach for the ceiling, and maybe we have the option of reaching up and back. Again, almost no weight is in that back arm. We might even do a little half bind. Again, it's really not about how much we can bend to the side. We want to think lift and then tilt. It's a little kinder for the back. Again, make that time around. Maybe we're thinking about that right knee. Can we have it still facing straight ahead? Again, we're strengthening muscles that are chronically underworked on us, chronically weak. It's okay if that creates a little discomfort. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Now if we're ready, we come up. We find extended side angle. Any version. Do we like our conventional one with the forearm, or hand on the shin, hand on the ground, hand on the block? Some people even like the hand on the outside of the knee, and they're actively pressing that knee into the arm. That's more of the Ashtanga variety. Again, make this your own. What do you want to do with this? We're going to breathe. I know our legs are getting tired, but can we breathe in? Can we breathe out? 1 more full breath. Now, if we can, we come all the way up. We'll find triangle, that front leg can straighten, trying your best not to let it lock out. If we need to readjust the back leg, you readjust. We reach forward, we cartwheel down. We'll give this a few breaths. Again, any version we need. One of my favorite online personalities, one of her, I guess, catchphrases is the best way to explain it, is "that's your business." And we can think about that with every pose. We do it whatever version we need, whatever version works best for our body, because that's your business. And we're trying our best to breathe in and breathe out. And if you're curious, that personality's name is Tabitha Brown. 1 more breath. Now, if we can, we're going to press through those feet. We're going to come back up. Now we're finding our way into our goddess pose. Let that front leg pivot in, back heel pivots in. Maybe readjust the feet. We shift back and down. Maybe we can find those goddess arms again. Knees are actively pressing towards the side, trying to point out the pinky side edges of the knees. If you were like me, your bone structure actually makes it really hard to get those knees to point with this in the same direction as the toes. Do your best. Maybe we're coming back to horse breath. Maybe we're finding that doing silly breath actually makes these poses a little easier. So take that deep breath in, deep breath out. So deep breath in, deep breath out. Just a few more as we breathe in and out. Maybe 1 more as we breathe in and out. Now maybe we let that tailbone get a little heavier. Now we'll come straight up. We'll let our feet pivot straight ahead. Maybe they even pivot in slightly. And we'll come into our forward fold. So maybe we start to hinge at the hips. Maybe we like to walk ourselves out. Any version that we need here. Now maybe it feels good just to sway a little bit side to side. Maybe it feels good to shake out the head. And we're trying our best to breathe in and breathe out. Again, this is your pose. What do you want to do with it? Maybe you like to sway side to side. Maybe you're adding in light twists. Maybe you have your hands behind your back. Again, make this your own because that's your business. We might even do a little horse breathing here, where we take that breath in and out. Just notice how it feels when the head is below the waist like this. And if we find we have to clean up after ourselves because we've gotten spittle everywhere, that's okay. Hopefully we have some soap and water, some Lysol wipes. So we're going to try our best to breathe in. We're going to try our best to breathe out. And again, we can come out of this pose however we want to. We do not have to do that pivot into a runner's lunge. If that pivot feels good, we might bend our knees and we're going to get our hands to walk towards the front of the mat. As we do so, that front foot pivots forward, back heel pops up. We don't have to frame the foot with our hand if we don't want to. We can always do more of a lizard variation. Now, if we want to play with our core just a little bit more, we're going to press through our hands. It'll lift up through that upper back, bend the knee, foot hovers for a little bit, and then we come back to our down dog. Again, any movement we need here, which might even include skipping our chaturanga or our tricep push-up, where we come to plank, we drop the knees, we press through the belly, that's super important. We find our back bend nice and gentle, and then we press through, lifting up, maybe more towards a table, and then we come back. Again, we don't have to do any of these variations. We want to make sure this time is our own. I'm just giving you lots of options, and knowing that we don't have to do even a lower or a back bend if either or neither feel good. Now we're making sure we give ourselves plenty of time and something resting, because eventually we're finding our version of pigeon pose. And again, pigeon is not for everyone. It's not for everyone all the time. I'll show all three variations. You choose the version you want. Now maybe we can start on our non-dominant side. So if you're right-handed, that might mean lifting up our left leg. So this is to come into pigeon. If we don't want to come to pigeon, hang tight. So maybe we lift up the leg. We might even like to do a little three-legged dog. We don't have to. Now as we're ready, we'll do our knee to chest as we come to plank, but this time that knee is going to go towards that left elbow. We'll let our shin come down. We'll let our back knee come down. If we come into this position and we already know this isn't for us, please come out. Some people might scooch the back knee back a little bit. This is also a great place for a rolled up towel or blankets. We can take it, we can place it underneath that lifted hip, that left hip. And again, whether or not your shin is parallel to the top of the mat or the heel is actually closer more towards that opposite hip, make it your own. There's too much variability going on in the hip structure to tell you which version is the right one. Just listen to the knee, listen to the tailbone area, listen to the low back. Now, if pigeon doesn't work for us, we can do reclined pigeon, which is when we come onto our backs. We hug that knee in, we flex the foot, cradle the knee with that same hand, so left knee and left hand, right hand finds the foot, and we just let that knee wing out. Now we want to do little to no pressure in the right hand. We can put a light pressing of the left knee away with the left hand, only if that feels good, but we really don't want to grab at our ankle and crank it to our body. That's really just going to put strain on our knee. Another option is figure four, which is when we bend the knee and the thigh holds that ankle. And we're welcome to hug that knee in or hug the shin in. Again, that's your business. Make it your own. So in whatever version we found, I want you to take a moment to settle in. Now that might mean using props. Again, I love the blanket underneath the hips. I feel like I have to work a little less hard. I also like to put a block in front of me. First, to actually create height. So I feel like that helps out my right hip, that opposite hip. Maybe I feel comfortable placing my forearms on it. Maybe after a little bit of time, my forearms are on the floor. Maybe head's on the floor, but we want to remember that that's really not our end goal. For some people, that actually creates compression in the hips. And so if that's the case, we ease away from that. There's too much going on with pigeon to really tell you which way you should do across the board. We're all going to need something different. Now we're just going to do our best to hang tight. Pigeon pose, as I like to point out in other classes, bridges the gap between our Vinyasa, Hatha practice, that more yang energy practice, and yin yoga, that yin energy, because this is a pose we hold for a little bit. And we're going to try our best to be present with what we find as we hold it. Sometimes being still creates a reaction in the mind. Sometimes intense stretches create a reaction in the mind. Sometimes specifically stretches in the hips create a reaction in the mind. And if it's possible, I invite you to breathe through that. And maybe we're coming back to horse breath. Maybe it's just silly enough that it helps jostle something that's feeling a little stuck. That breath in and out. So whatever we need, we're just going to give this a few more breaths. Maybe one more breath in. And one more breath out. Now, if we're ready, we come out in whatever way we need to. So if we're on our back, that might mean uncrossing the legs or letting them go. If we're in pigeon, some people like to come straight to down dog. Others, myself included, like to scooch the back knee in a little bit, lift up the hips a little bit, and then come back to downward facing dog. Another option is to kind of roll out onto that bent knee side and then come back. So if we were using our left side for a pigeon, we would then roll out on our left side. And again, make that movement your own. There's too much variability going on to tell you which is the best way for you personally to come out. And we're just going to give ourselves a moment here. Hit reset. If you want to do a conventional vinyasa flow, you may. But again, mindful that any movement we're doing right now, any deliberate movement to help out after this stretch is a vinyasa flow. So again, make that movement what you need it to be. Maybe we're ready to try it on the other side. So if it's pigeon pose, maybe now we're taking that dominant leg up, maybe into three-legged dog. And we do our knee to chest, knee to that outside edge of the mat, shin, back leg come down. Maybe we scooch the back leg back. Maybe we've placed that rolled up blanket underneath our lifted hip. Again, maybe we're rolling onto our back to do our reclined pigeon. Maybe we're in figure 4. So I did a lot of instruction for side 1, for side 2. I'm going to try to be a little bit more quiet. And as I always like to say, be curious. Which version is easier for you? The version where you have someone to listen to the entire time, or the version where there is silence? Now maybe we can give this 3 more breaths. Now if we're ready, we come out in whatever way we need to come out. So, and notice what we personally need. Maybe we like that roll out option. Maybe we want to do something different. Maybe we're coming to table. Now again, any movement or non-movement that we need right now, which I truly believe is the most vinyasa flowy thing we can do. We're listening to the body. We're doing something deliberately and with intention. So whatever we found here, let's give this 3 more breaths. Now mindful, we're all going to meet in a seated position eventually. If we want to play with essentially the precursor into hopping through to seated, we're going to think about pressing through our finger pads, press to the base of that index finger, press the belly in and up, because this is more about core than anything else. We're going to think about lifting through the hips, feet do almost no work. We certainly don't want to think of this as jumping, but we're going to lift up through the hips. We're going to cross our legs, feet land wherever they're going to land. We slowly walk ourselves back. Then we uncross. Again, that's the precursor to the hop through. Now, if we're ready, we can extend the legs if they're not extended already. We might shake them out. We might move our feet side to side. We'll find our forward fold. Now that might mean readjusting the hips. Some people might even take that blanket or towel, maybe unfold it once if it was rolled up. They might place themselves on the edge of that towel and just do a very light rolling forward. That might tilt our hips forward. Say that 3 times fast. We'll start with our staff pose if that feels good. We're going to lift up through our chest. We're going to press the belly to the spine, make that letter L to the best of our abilities. Now, if we want to, we can tilt forward. Now, I personally like the version where we walk our hands out, but if you like the version where you inhale your arms up and exhale to swan dive, perfectly fine. Again, it's your business. And can we pause here? Can this get 5 deep breaths? Maybe one last breath in, and one last breath out. Now if we're ready, we're welcome to come back up. Now we might shake out the legs, we might move our feet a little bit side to side. Now we'll find our way into our twist, and again, make sure you're making this time your own. Pay attention to those knees. We'll bring in our right knee. Now if we can, we'll cross it over the straight leg. And if we want to, we can take that bent knee, or that straight leg, and bend the knee, and that heel finds the opposite hip. But we do that checking in. Knee's okay with it, hips are okay with it. We've got that right hip on the ground, and furthermore, our low back did not lock up. It's no use coming into a twist if that back is all locked up because we're doing too much in the hips. Now for our twist, we're going to take a deep breath in. On the exhale, can we do it hands-free as we twist towards that right side, and eventually arms go where they're going to go. It's okay to do a little light tractioning, a little light pressing of that arm into the leg, as long as we don't think of this as cranking the twist. So we can just make that time your own. Take that breath in if we can. Take that breath out. One more full breath. Then we'll come back to center, and we'll try it in the opposite direction. Now we're welcome to stay upright for that pose. We're welcome to plant one hand or 2 hands down. We can reach out that right hand. It's really whatever you need. And as we give this a few breaths, mindful that just like the pivot into our runner's lunge, we do not have to play with the pivot into the other side. This is also kind of known as the ninja sit or the ninja swirl, but again, make that time your own. If we have both knees bent, what we might do is we might plant both hands on that left side. We're gonna get ready to pivot onto the balls of our feet, press through that belly, use that core. We're gonna lift up through our hips, and we're gonna uncross the legs, and we'll notice that our hands naturally need to start going in this counterclockwise position. We're just gonna keep going, keep letting those feet pivot. Now, nice and mindfully, we might need to readjust our feet as we come down. Use those arms to help you come down. Don't let gravity put you in a pose that you don't want to come into. Now, if we played with that and we're like, where did I end up? That's okay. You were playing with what's known as crossing the midsection in your brain that does kind of trip us up. If we found ourselves in that situation, just uncross the legs, Take the left knee, cross it over the right. Maybe we've bent in the right leg, maybe not. Now if we're ready, we're gonna find length. Deep breath in. On the exhale, we'll twist towards that right side, maybe or left side. Maybe we are hands free, maybe that hand found the thigh, maybe not. And we'll breathe. Can this get 2 more breaths? Now if we're ready, we'll unwind. We're going to come back to center. Now we're welcome to twist in the opposite direction. We might be tall. We might plant 1 or 2 hands down. We might reach out that left hand. We might even play with a little semi-back rounding only for the left side of the back. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty. We're just trying to help out our body. And sometimes that means kind of looking like the hunchback in Notre Dame. That's okay. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Now if we're ready, we'll come back. Now if you want to play with the pivot all the way around to the other side and then uncross, you may. Maybe we just want to bring our weight back, uncross the legs, shake them out, move the feet. And then eventually we'll bring our backs down onto the mat. Again, we want to make that time our own, get there however you would like to get there. Now once we are here, we're welcome to hug the knees and rock. Maybe we draw circles with the knees. Maybe we have our feet down and we're just windshield wipering the knees side to side. If it feels good, we'll find any twist of our choosing towards the right. Now again, it might be that twist intensive variation where the left knee traveled over while the right leg stayed straight along the length of our mat. Maybe it feels good to have our arms out to the side. Whatever version we need here. Just give this a few breaths. Now if we're ready, we're going to come back to center. We'll try it in the other direction, and again, adjust your body as you need to. Whatever you found on the right side, if it works for the left, we can come into it, but mindful that if we need something different on the left side, that's okay. Recognize when things are asymmetrical and work towards balance, not forced symmetry. Find that breath if you can. One more breath here. Now if we can, we're going to come back to center. We can move in whatever way we need to move. And for our last pose, or at least our last guided pose, we'll find supine bound angle. Now maybe we let our feet come down, soles of the feet have met, knees are out towards the side. And we just do what we need here. I am personally a fan of practicing belly breathing while in this pose because I feel like I have the most space to practice belly breath, where I inhale and inflate the stomach, and I exhale and let it come down. And maybe I just do this a couple of times. Maybe I do it for the rest of practice. Now it's okay if this feels foreign. It's okay if it feels silly. Again, sometimes it's the silly breaths that help us out the most, the ones that cause us to use all of our concentration, all of our attention, to breathe in a way that we're not used to. But again, we're going to make this time our own. And this is just the last guided pose. So this is our chance to add in anything else that we might need. We can settle into Shavasana in whatever way we need, which might be this pose itself, or maybe we're coming into our more conventional version with the legs along the length of the mat. Again, I want you to make this time your own. And as always, if we need a little more time for Shavasana, Shavasana is relatively quick during these digital classes. If we need extra time, please hit pause, put a timer on your phone, give yourself that extra time. Again, sometimes what we need isn't necessarily the easiest thing. We might actually have some resistance against it. But again, we want to really ask ourselves, what would help me best right now? And I want you to go forward with that. Now, if we're going to do Shavasana along with the video, I'll be playing my singing bowls for just a few minutes, eventually letting them fade into silence. And what we do between now and when I eventually ring my chimes to guide us back is always within our power. And start with that deep breath in and deep breath out. And as we let that breath deepen, I invite you to let movement start to return. I invite that movement to be as slow as we can, as gentle, letting it slowly build up. As always, noticing that temptation to hop out of Shavasana, and notice if we can delay that by even one breath. And no rush whatsoever, we get there as we get there. Eventually, we will find our way into our easy seat, which might involve rolling to one side, maybe even pausing there for a moment, before eventually bringing ourselves back up. Now, when we are ready, we'll let our hands come together at the heart, and we'll pause for a moment. Now, if we can, maybe we come back to the idea of reframing our intention as a gratitude affirmation. But perhaps this time we allow it to be a question. What is it about my intention that I am grateful for? And it's okay if we don't have an answer for that. And then whatever meaning of namaste resonates for you. And perhaps today it is the resiliency within me bows to the resiliency that is within you. I thank you for your time. And I thank you for your practice. Namaste.